Hello, welcome back. So I'm going to talk about planes and generally just work features today. Um, there's a lot of uses for them. I wouldn't say people use planes all the time. You're gonna find there's a use case. You have something that you can't easily locate, and you're gonna use a sketch for that, or a plane, or something that ties in some kind of work feature for you to build upon. So it's kind of a niche thing, but I need to kind of just show a general demo so that you know what you can do and give you different ways to go about making something. So I'll start with the easy stuff first. If you want to make an axis, so like when you look here in your origin folder, you're given your three planes and your different axes. I guess you would say axes, and you can make more of any of these. The axis is straightforward because all you do is just choose a cylindrical shape and it'll automatically put the axis in. Pretty straightforward. So when I click here, you can see this little axis has appeared. And I don't really use these a ton because, if you're constraining in an assembly, you still have the circular body. So you can pretty much get this anyways. But the axis itself is useful when you're making planes. And I really have never used any of these other ones, but the same concept's going to apply if you needed to have an axis, that's like, tangent to the part or something, or through 2 points. You could do that. You just click whichever one, and it'll give you the option. In my opinion, it's better to have a plane just because, it's got an actual face to draw on. But if you find yourself using these different features, let me know. I've never really had to use them personally, but they're pretty straightforward. You can kind of tell by the name here. You can do it on a line or edge. Again, I don't really see the point, but if you do want to use those, sure. I'm not even going to bother to cover them though, because generally all you're going to do is choose axis, a cylindrical face, and bam, there it is. And then also, you may want to resize them. What I usually do on planes and also axis, well, really anything, I usually right click them and make sure that auto resize is checked. The reason being, if I were to decide to extrude, this dude up like super, actually wouldn't go up. If I were to go and adjust something like this, now it's really, really tall. Okay, so if you look at work axis 1, it's still the original height from what we had earlier, whereas work axis 2, it stays proportionally growing to the actual part shape. So, typically what I like to do is definitely go in and change this to show auto resize. And I believe the planes and stuff, yeah, like the origin stuff, it defaults to auto resize. But for whatever reason, when you make work geometry, it just doesn't have it by default. So it is what it is, but take note, I would definitely check that. And then when you're done working, make sure to always turn the visibility off, because it's just more stuff cluttering your view. If you're working and you say have all these planes on, well, I mean, it's really hard to see what you're doing. So I always find it's best to make sure all of that is turned off. And again, as you see, I'm just selecting whatever, right clicking, and hitting visibility. Okay, so that's generally axis. Again, I can always go into more detail if needed. I don't really use the UCS at all. That's if someone has a use for that, please let me know. But I've never in my life once found the use case for it, so I'm not even gonna bother. But work points, I do enjoy these, and actually, I think these are great for iLogic. You can use these points of time into something. Now, that's about all I use them for. But say you did want something. I don't know. You want a point on this corner. Like now you have this work feature for it, and you could use it somewhere. Another use case would be probably to, I don't know if you can locate these. You can, besides just clicking points and stuff. So I guess if you didn't want to use an axis, for instance, you could end up choosing something like this. Does that put it? Where did that even put it? So okay, what this one did is it put it at the intersection of these two. So it could be useful to find like a meeting point of things, but I think you can also replicate an axis on here somewhere. Yeah, center point. I bet it would work for a, no? Okay, yeah, so you would still want an axis even in that case. So, but say maybe I could see use being you want this face and this axis, and what this is going to do is create a point on the top of this face. So if I were to suppress this, you would see now I have that point perfectly at the top of this. And again, you're probably not going to use, either one of these very much, but it's cool to know that it's there. I'm just going to turn the visibility off and unsuppress this. And I'm going to turn the visibility, well, I'm going to delete this point and turn the visibility off on our work axis. Oh, it is off. Well, it says it's off. I clearly see it's not. Okay. So with that, you may notice when I'm doing the work point, it starts to include things, and actually that's where that other axis was. I didn't realize I made another axis. I'm going to delete this one. So what happens is as you create work geometry on top of other work geometry, it starts to put it in like the child-parent relationship. So like your sketches, they're contained within the features. Same thing with the work geometry. So now the work point is the parent. Well, I guess it depends on how you say it. The work point is the dependent upon this axis. So the axis is contained within it. So something to keep in mind, like the same thing applies with a work axis and a plane, So I'm going to delete this point so that I can show that. I'm not going to delete consume stuff to keep it. And then I'm going to turn the visibility back on. And then I could say make a plane, and this is where I'll talk about all of these. Generically, you can hit this one, and this button here will let you do any of the options. And the same goes with these. So say I want to do a plane, and I want to do an offset from plane, or a normal to curve, at point, whatever. This generic button will let you do any of those options. The only difference is if you choose a particular one, it will only do that. So it depends. If you're very good with planes, you're only going to use the generic plane button. But if you're still just starting out, you're probably going to choose like specifically what you want to help you get there without possibly creating the wrong thing. So, first step's pretty straightforward. I'll just hit it, offset from plane. And all you're doing is creating a plane offset from another. So if I were to choose this YZ, I could, type in a number. Let's make it smaller so it's not out of view. And, as you can see there, it's projecting what it'll look like. So then I just hit OK. You can probably hit enter. Yeah. And now we have a plane. I could draw on that position. And one cool thing, and this is really the reason I have this random rectangle here, is to show this off. So what I had done originally, I modeled this, basic shape to have just a shape that is tied to the origin. There's no projected geometry, so I can suppress it, all that good stuff. But what if I wanted everything to move based on planes? This is something I used to do at my old job a lot, but I see it's on center. I drew it based on that same YZ plane. Now typically you wouldn't want to do this. You would want to sketch on the work plane to begin with, but you could always hit redefine. If I were to move this plane up so that it's above the sketch, it'll be visible to the sketch. So like since everything is relationship based, as you go down a tree, the order of operations happens. So if I were to pull the extrusion underneath the end of part, it's no longer there, but the plane is. So that says to me that the sketch was created after the plane. So that's why I moved it. But what I can do is redefine it to that work plane. And now, just like that, it pops into place. So now I can double click work plane and change the value, and it actually adjusts its position just like that. So it's pretty strong. And I could also put it back at the origin. Now granted, then you have a plane in the same place as another plane. But this is really where design intent comes in. If you intend a part to potentially change the position like that, it is good to have a work plane. It's actually the only really ideal way to locate a feature without something having to be redrawn, is to use work plane. So there is a use case. It's just finding how you can fit it into what you're doing. So I'm going to turn this plane visibility off. And, so again, you can double click it. I think you can also right click, edit dimension, and it'll let you do it. I'm going to put it back out here on 2. And then let's play around with a few more of these planes, and then I'll show you another trick with the ability to move a sketch like that. Okay, so we have parallel to plane through point. Now, we don't really have a ton of points. We only really have the rectangle points. So what I will do is make a plane on this face here. And granted, as you see, it's predicting selections automatically, but that's because I chose that one. So I'm going to choose parallel to plane. I'm going to choose the XY, and then I'm going to choose this corner point right here. Now, granted, you could have done many other things, but if you want to, quickly do a plane on a face, you could just do something like that, which, now it's perfectly aligned, as you can see. And then, like I mentioned before, make sure you're auto resizing these things. You can always just make as many as you need and then change it after. So that one's pretty straightforward. It doesn't allow editing because you would have to reassociate it, which is why typically when I make planes, I will either make a plane in place like this, or if I can, ideally, I will make one that is offset, and then I will drive it with like parametric values to always keep it in position where I want it. With this one, the only thing you can do is basically right click and hit redefine and set it back up, and that kind of sucks. So, but it does allow you to redo it. So as you can see, same inputs, same spot. So I'm gonna turn that one off. Then we have mid-plane between two planes. And this one actually is the GOAT. I use it all the time. All it is, if you want we'll call it a bisecting plane, a plane that's, in between a part, like in the middle. Say you screwed up, you drew something, and for whatever reason you can't get it to be centered on the part, or something like this. Maybe you're just going to constrain everything to this square. So you really need it to be holding an origin that you can constrain everything to the center of. Well, then you can do the mid plane. You choose an outside face, the other outside face, and as you can see before I even click, the preview shows we will have a plane perfectly in between the two. You can do the same thing clicking planes, but generally I use faces. The only thing that sucks is if you change the geometry of the part, you're probably going to have to redefine this plane. It does tend to break a lot when you're modeling, but it sure is easy to work with. Next up, mid-plane of torus. I've never used this in my life, but we can try it. We don't have torus, so it doesn't work. You're never going to use a torus, so I'll play around with that if you want to. Then we have angle to plane around edge. So let's try this. I'm just going to click an edge, and then it looks like we need a face. Let's see what that does. Put it at like a 45 so we can see what it's really doing here. So what it's doing is making sure that the plane is in the plane of existence there. It's pretty much collinear, I guess you could say, with that edge. And then what you're doing is pivoting the plane in position. So I guess if you had, maybe like a downward slope, and for whatever reason you didn't draw it through normal means, you could do something like this, and then like draw on this face and extrude down into the part, something like that. I don't really see much use for that, but maybe you find an application. Everybody models different things, so I am going to leave that plane. I almost turned it off, but then we have 3-point, and say, I don't know, we wanted to kind of recreate that same concept. I'm pretty sure, yeah. So you could choose 2 points in line with each other, and then choose this corner, and now we have a plane that perfectly cuts through the diagonals of it. And that works for multiple things. If I didn't want to do that 3-point, I could do, this point, and this point. Or if we still had our work point from earlier, I could even do something crazier, like choosing this point, and then, I don't know, let's do this point and this point. So now we have this goofy plane that's cutting through. You wouldn't want to do that, but you could do that. So I'm going to undo that one. Let's see, 2 coplanar edges. It's kind of the same concept. Instead of doing a 3-point and choosing these 2 edges or corners and this corner, I could just choose edge and edge, and bam, cut it right in half through the diagonal again. I actually have never used that, but that's I could see some use case in that. And then this one, you'll find you use these a lot, the tangents, depending on what you're working on, but tangent through an edge. So I could choose this, and then it's hard to say. I guess like what it's going to do is basically align a plane offset from this edge. It's also kind of aligned to this edge. So what we're doing, when you look, it's going to be touching the face, basically. Oh, well actually, turns out I modeled that perfectly in place to where it actually is tangent. Okay, so let's move that just to see what it does. Let's make it 2.5. Okay, and something broke. What was it? Let's undo that so I can see again. Well, now I didn't get the error. Okay. So anyway, looks like we lost our plane. That's what it was. Okay, so let's do it again. Tangent through edge. I don't think it's gonna work given that though. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, my bad. So we're looking for a vertical here basically. And what it does is it's kind of like making a seamless transition from edge to edge. So when you look, there you go. You know, you've got your tangent to this point. It kind of makes sense because then you could like draw a top view and like project this edge and close it out. I don't really use that one, but I mean, clearly it works. So no judgment there. Up next we have tangent surface through point. It's the same concept obviously, but for whatever reason it doesn't let me choose any points, so I'm just gonna not use that one. I've never really seen a use case for it, so, but it looks like it does have to be basically a point touching. I don't know, let's try it one more time. Maybe it'll let me do this point. Yeah, okay. If you find a use for it, good luck. I don't know what you'd be using it for, but as you can see, it pretty much just cuts through the point, making it tangent to the circular body. And then we have tangent surface and parallel to plane. So this one, if you say you wanted to make a plane that was like right here, you could do a tangent to surface here, choose this face, and now it's going to make it tangent, but it'll make it angularly aligned to that face. So that one, I don't know, maybe you'll find a use. To be honest, they give you a million options, but odds are you're probably going to use two. Normal to axis through point. Okay, so same deal. If I were to go unconstrained to this point, I could choose this axis. I could also choose one of these ones that were given, and I can choose a point. And what it's going to do is make that plane where, if I were to, FY, if you don't have auto resize on, you can grab the corners and pull them. But to say I were to look at a top view, this axis actually is piercing through the sketch, because when you're thinking about projection, you know, you're looking at a part from a direction. So like basically you have to contemplate the idea that the axis is the direction you're going to be looking. So when you choose to do, I don't remember what the inputs were, I did a point and an axis, you know that you're going to basically be making it where you're drawing in the direction the axis is traveling. So you could then make a sketch and it's perfectly aligned to, say, some kind of geometry you may have, you know, like right here I may have something going on and I need it to be aligned to this axis, but I'm not sure what it is, so I can't quite draw it. This would come in handy for that. Probably a useful tool. I don't use it either, but, you know. And then normal to curve at a point, I've never tried, but maybe you just choose, yeah, you would choose an actual circular edge and then a point, and it makes, it looks like a kind of a perpendicular style plane. Actually, it's cutting the opposite direction you would expect. Instead of tangent, it's 90 degrees from it. And that's pretty much it for most of them. I do want to talk about my favorite one, and I don't even know what you'd actually call this one, but usually what I like to do is a plane, and then I choose an angle or a axis, and then I'll choose like a face, and then what it allows you to do is give it an angle. So like a lot of times, you know, you may have a part and you can't quite get the right position on it quickly, but this one you can, because you can just choose an axis, a face, and then you know it's already aligned to your part. So say I want it to cut you know, in this direction, all I'd have to do is just slap in a 90, and now we've got one going this direction. And also the reason it's my favorite as well is because you can change this. So let's say we had this original sketch again. Oh, it has geometry based on this one, so let's delete this one. I'll show you a different way to make it. So I'm gonna choose the plane and the origin plane, and it automatically defaults to 90. So I'm just gonna hit OK. So now I'm gonna take this, move it above, but Still won't let me. Why though? Oh, because the axis was made then. Okay, so now I should be able to pull it above it. Yeah, so obviously it goes without saying, I mentioned the axis earlier. It also has to be above the extrusion. So if you have something that depends on something, they both have to be moved, and obviously the original has to go first. So anywho, now I can redefine this sketch to this plane and check this crap out. How cool is that? You know, it's a powerful tool. I actually used to use this a lot at my old job because you could you would have helical coils and you would have multiple, and I had it set up to where you would have multiple coils in line with each other, and depending on the numbers you were given, they would rotate accordingly to fit whatever design you have. So this is actually useful. My two favorites are definitely the angle, because again, you're putting in values, and the offset, and as you can see, the ability to adjust. That's really the power in planes. The rest of it, it's kind of hearsay. You know, I really think if you're going to use planes, odds are you can achieve whatever without planes. The real purpose of planes is to try to make adjustable things, and that's really the big thing with drafters. Like, anybody can draw. It's really the ability to modify things. It's all about knowing how to do design intent. And as you get to be better, you're going to pretty much be on par with everybody. But the thing that pushes you above and beyond is learning how to dynamically make things so that they can constantly change in any possible scenario. And I guess that's pretty much it. I do want to talk about one more thing you could do. You know, say... Let's see, I'm trying to think of something I can draw. Basically, you can use sketch geometry as well. So say I were to sketch and do a slice graphics. I could choose, let's say I'll choose this point right here, and this point and this point. Well, do I want this 3 point? Yeah, it'll be fine. I'm just trying to show an example, but I could actually make sure the sketch visibility is on, and then I can choose that sketch geometry as well. This is kind of like cheat codes, you know, so it made a little plane, as you can kind of see there. But a good example is in auxiliary views. You can actually draw a sketch where you know the values are, and then you can let a plane choose the 3 points, and it'll do the math. So I'm going to actually show you an example, because this really is one of my probably favorite things about sketches is the ability to do that. So one of my other classes I teach, we have this holder block here. And the easiest way to set it up properly, I played around with this for a long time, and I've come to the conclusion that it's easier to set up a plane to cut this face away. Because, you know, I was playing around with different options, and I couldn't find a way that told me it was right. You know, like, I felt very uncomfortable. I wasn't sure it felt like it was right at all. So I made the sketch. Now, granted, you know, as you can see, it's kind of goofy looking. It's positioned to the, here, let's do a look at again. I zoomed away immediately. Look at the plane. So, like, it's basically positioned to the ISO view of the part. So it cuts away everything, because I just cut the opposite direction. And that's because I didn't know how to determine these edge lengths. It's a really old drawing, and I can draw it great in AutoCAD, but for some reason I couldn't seem to quite nail it in Inventor. But all I did was made my normal part shape right here, and then I made, I can't tell what the sketch is, I keep looking at it. All I did was project this edge, and then I put a point, okay? So that gave us one of our 3 points we need for a 3-point projection. And then I did the same here, making a point where I knew the values. And then all I did was just make a plane that touched those 3 points. And then I was able to cut it away. And this is a great use case for sketches. I really don't use them besides that. But if you're trying to work lazy, you can probably use them in other options too, you know. But in the end, it gives you the info you need doing that. So it's pretty cool. But that's really going to be it for this video. If anyone has any questions about work features at all, just let me know. Thanks for watching.